Be sure to subscribe and like our channel. You know, every time I see our intro, Zach, I think we should bust out with a voodoo ritual.
Legit,
sir. Right? Because that's legit. Actually, from a ritual that I did several years ago. So,
yes, it is.
So yeah,
yes, it is.
In case you were wondering, this is Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole, and it's Queen City Curio. And once again, if you're playing a drinking game, we're starting a little late, so have a shot.
Take a shot.
Oh Take a shot. Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole drinking game. Because why? We're at 607 Gerard Street, although I'm not there today. Obviously, if you were watching this earlier, you know, like I got sort of near scare and COVID, and that's just the way it is. And I don't know why my screen is again bad today. But
yeah, it is slowed down again, so I'm not sure what's happening.
I don't know. Like, the software is just not being kind to me today. But my vocals are fine, so you're going to see me look like a old school Japanese dub movie from the 1980s before the computers did it for us.
I miss those.
Those films. I know those are.
I know those were great.
Some of the best.
Yeah.
So 607 Gerard Street. If you're in Toronto, you should stop by. 607 Gerard Street. We have multiple little temples in the hall. We have a shrine to the dead already set up for community. Anyone in the community can come by. You could just walk in. People come there, leave offerings all the time. We clean it up. We kind of do what's necessary. It's a public altar. We have a fully consecrated, triply consecrated, blessed mirror that the dead can come through and you can kind of talk with. There's a whole shrine out there. We also have a Buddhist shrine that's esoteric Buddhism, and the first Buddhist spirit out there, appropriately speaking, is the Sun Buddha, and it's been consecrated. So those are actually publicly available. We don't take money for them, but if you're in Toronto, you should come down and just sit and pray as you need to. We're still working on a wish shrine, but that one has got a little delayed. But we'll have a Shinto wish shrine too. So if you're in Toronto, there's a lot of free stuff you could come and do at our store. And we were going to do a Michael ritual tomorrow, but now, because I have a near COVID quarantine situation, next week.
Next week, double feature.
And we will, well, my Michael rituals are pretty good, I think.
Pretty good. You are underselling what happened at your Michael ritual, sir. The last one you ran, people heard trumpets outside the door.
Yeah, that was a pretty good ritual, actually.
Nice.
And people were essentially not, I have to say, they weren't on drugs, and people were literally seeing the angels and hallucinating in the room. So outside the room, they heard trumpets and choirs. Inside the room, people were tripping hard.
Well, you know, and it wasn't even really the Victorian angels either. You know, it was like the 10-eyed Cthulhian things that angels actually sort of should be.
Yeah.
Ophenium.
Yeah, like the things that when you actually see, when you're like, how much LSD did I do?
Exactly.
Apparently a lot. A lot of LSD. Man, my screen's so bad. I'm sorry about that, everyone watching. We really appreciate you, even though I'm having technical difficulties. So Zach might have to be the master today.
Live podcast, live YouTube. This is what you get, everyone.
Well, I even rebooted my machine. So now I'm
did.
What's going on here? But Chrome just updated on the Mac. So I bet.
Yes, that is probably what did it.
I'm thinking that is probably what did it. So you can see my little Baphomet there.
Yes, we do.
Well, yes, whenever Chrome updates on the Mac, this happens. Bad things occur.
Bad things happen. We know how Mac.
So we'll fix that in a second.
We'll fix it.
I'll fix that in a second. But today this is double header, obviously, because we had scheduling problems. But today, besides all the canceled Michael ritual, today we're going to have Doug from Whose Magic Is This? Also fellow Canadian. We have Canadian love.
Hello.
We'll have him on the show. We're going to kind of talk about the dark side of podcasting, but not only. We're going to talk about magic too.
Perfect.
Dark side of podcasting.
Side of podcasting. That's
Because-
what we talk about in this episode.
Because Doug is the first person that I know of doing a cult podcast and making his living off of it.
It's true. Yeah.
I don't know anyone who makes their living off of it. They kind of do the store, or they kind of support like we do. It's sort of advertisement for the store.
Yep.
And it feeds into something else. But this Doug is the first person I've heard who actually has made it work. And there's some positives to that, but maybe today we'll take the veil off on the not so positive things. We already got into how our whole show is based around live radio, and well, today we could see that based on my bathmate that's there, not me.
Yep.
But we'll fix that in a second if you're watching, so we appreciate it again. But yeah, there's some not good sides to kind of the amount of effort. I think people underestimate all the effort that's involved in sort of building any kind of content marketing business. But I would imagine in the culture, building a content marketing podcast is even more work to get it to work.
Yeah, it's interesting. The biggest thing that one needs to realize is nobody ever gets into the occult to get rich. Like it's one of those things where trying to make money from this kind of stuff, if you go in with that ambition to begin with, you're going to fail. You're going to fail immediately. There's just not enough people that are interested in this kind of thing, let alone people willing to like actually spend money on it. Sure, there's books. Andrieh knows about the whole book side and the book angle, but truthfully, yeah, when you start out with this kind of stuff, you need to realize that there's just not a lot of people that are interested in this kind of thing. And the people that are interested in it, 50% of the people at this moment who are interested in it will not be interested in it in a year. Like it's just it's such a niche topic and interest that people will like they'll play with it. I use the analogy, they'll play with it for about as long as the United States played with the metric system. It's just like they take it and they go, oh, this is interesting. No, I don't want it. And then they just move on to something else. And it's not because they think that, you know, there might be some kind of like demonic element or it like ruined their life for most people. Most people these days, their interests are very short, and it's tough because they see something else shiny and then they move to that. So yeah, it's one of those things where, as I just said, if you go into particularly occult podcasting and you're thinking that you're going to be able to make a living out of it, very few do. I don't know very many people that do. And it's really rough. But there's, you know, I'm lucky. I'm very, very lucky that I'm able to do what I do, and I thank I thank my fans and my supporters every day that I'm able to do this for a job.
So I should say, like, yes, if people think you're going to make a large amount of money on writing a cult book, you're also wrong.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I can make some money, but I wouldn't quit my day job, which is backed by 2 master's degrees, anytime soon. I might invest in a spiritual center called Queen City Curio, but that's a different. I mean, before COVID, we had an anti-social media policy.
We absolutely did. It was awesome.
And it was working. We were basically no social media presence at all. We have SEO, newsletters, but no social media, no witch wars on social media, no Instagram. Purposefully, like we're word of mouth business. Like if you're not physically coming, we're not interested. Like,
yeah.
What did you guys find? Like, did that help at all? Do you think that it attracted a different kind of people?
Before COVID, it definitely was working.
It was working, yes.
I mean, we were not getting the classical cultists, but I have a personal belief. I hate the way my hat looks right now. So live radio, right?
Live radio.
I just can't get it right. We're moving candles, moving the
Camera,
everything. Like, well, I'll just look like I'm drunk.
Let's just say you look
just make it
gangster.
happen.
Let's just say you look gangster, sir. Let's just go with that.
Hey.
Okay.
Just so you know, that's what Canadians are drunk all the time. If people are watching this from outside of Canada, just so you know, every Canadian has a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of rye in their back pocket. So
this is
Andrieh,
maple whiskey. This stuff
maple
is
whiskey.
good.
We got the good stuff.
do you have the bacon maple whiskey? Because you can find that
No,
too. That's
but
oh yeah.
I would try that.
I tried that.
Yeah, head to your local LCBO. For people who don't know, that's all of alcohol is controlled by one entity in the province that Andrieh and Zachary live.
It's true.
Yes,
it's true. We successfully lobbied to get Haitian rum,
and we got it. And we got it.
Them. Every
Good for
week
you
we
guys.
would call them and go but like, so we use that in our voodoo practice. So we're like,
right.
Yeah, can you just get this Haitian rum? You know,
please, can we have some more?
The U.S. has it. Why can't you have it? It's just rum. And
it is.
And then after asking about, I don't know, 100 times, calling up into chain, talking to manager after manager, week after week, they started carrying it.
There you go.
So,
nice.
It's just getting more gangster.
Just roll with it.
I'm
man.
not okay with
just
this level of gangster today.
I feel left out. I feel like I should get a hat. Oh man!
I think the camera is on an angle, so it's throwing me off, and that's the issue.
There you go.
Yeah. The geometries are not right. It's a weird angle.
That looks good. That looks good. Now. There you go.
So if you're listening on podcast, you need to check out the video for this.
Well, you know, people can understand I was having technical problems, hat problems. You know, I'm basically like quarantined. This is what happens when COVID comes into your proximity. It's just confusion. It's kind of true, but
it is
meant it as a joke, but it's not really a joke.
It's not really a joke.
I mean, I think everyone's walking around in post-traumatic stress syndrome now from like the fact that we were basically in quarantine jail for 2 years.
Yep.
Yeah,
that said, like all that set aside, like yes, you have the professional podcast.
Yeah.
And well, let's lay the facts down. Like people who think it's easy, you kind of laid out I got very lucky and this doesn't usually happen. I mean, there's maybe one other show that I know that kind of might be professional too, or they might make enough to survive. But how many hours do you spend a week on it to make that work?
So initially when I first started, I'll give the story of my podcast history. So I started the podcast as a hobby. I needed something to do, and I just had all of this knowledge, and I wasn't doing anything with it, and I wanted to share with people. So I started the podcast in June of 2019. At the time, I was working at a museum in Ontario. I'm not going to mention which museum, but in Toronto, I think if you live in Toronto, there's kind of only one museum that you know of. Anyways. So it was one of those things where I did it just, the people that were on my show were literally people that I worked with. Like they were just friends. Right. And so for my initial show, I did 3 times a month. So every 10 days, I try to do an episode. Episodes were no longer than an hour, right? So just have a friend over. I would just use the knowledge that was, spilling or rattling around in my head. It wasn't a big deal. I still put a lot of work into it. We were just talking about social media. I spent a lot of time on Twitter. I spent a lot of time on Facebook, just trying to spread my show initially. It started to work. Then lockdown, we were just talking about also lockdown happened. I don't have a job. So the museum I work at, because it's a public place, people don't realize this. Toronto locked down longer than any other major city in the world. It was in complete lockdown, as in anything that wasn't non-essential was locked down for over 2 years. Like that, it's some stuff opened up in the summer for like a little bit, but if you add up the amount of time that Toronto was actually locked down for, it was over.
I think it's probably any Western country, because I think there was
Okay.
places in China
Correct.
were
China's
major
still-
cities
yeah,
that were
China's still
locked down
going.
for longer.
True. Sorry to clarify. In the West, nobody was locked down longer than Toronto. There might be a place in Italy that was maybe close, but not with the numbers. Toronto's nearly 6 million people. Like keeping 6 million people out of everything that's not a business, that's a feat, right? So I didn't have a job. I had nothing to besides like these payments that the government of Canada decided to try and help people get through. And luckily they did help for a little bit, but I was like, even when things get back to quote unquote normal, it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be rough to try and continue what I do. Probably my hours will be diminished because everything's going to be about safety protocols and all of this kind of stuff. So I just went full in on the podcast. So the podcast became the thing that I wanted to do. Truthfully, like it's where I wanted my life to go. So I basically said, look, I'm going to start to morph my show into one where it's not just me and friends talking. I'm going to have academics on the show. I'm going to have other occultists on the show. And I'm going to make the show more than just, an hour long max. My shows will now be 2 hours long, and I'm going to do that 3 times a month. So to go to your original question, I've kind of scaled back. So I'm only doing about a podcast every 2 weeks, but I'm also doing stuff on Patreon, which is where basically 99% of my funding is right now, is through Patreon. I'm doing as much stuff on my regular podcast as I'm doing on the Patreon, and it's all original. It's not just like I'll give you a little extra bit of an episode or you get the episodes early. I'm doing actual full-length episodes on my Patreon, right? So that means I'm literally doing about one major project a week. So that's happening 4 times a month, right? So, but with my regular podcast. So to answer your question, when I was at full steam ahead, I was working 10 to 12 hours a day, at least 6 days a week. And that's not just like me being like, I'm just scrolling social media. That's me actually like reading all of the crap I have behind me researching everything I need to do. Like I don't just have guests on and we chat. I'm going through all of their books. I'm going through books that have anything to do with the interest. I per episode, I probably read 3 books. Like I'm spending all of my time on this kind of on my show. Basically, once the show's done, we also talked about earlier before the microphone turned on. I heavily edit my podcast. I try to get rid of all the that takes
a long time.
It takes a long time.
15 hours, right? I do
that's the longest part. I mean, now
Yep.
we use an AI software with that because we're lazy.
Right.
We have done the editing before though, and that takes a long time.
It really
and
does.
really, like I really want to get back on an FM station because like every time we do live radio, weird stuff happens. Not usually my hat being the problem. That was just today. The hat being the problem was enough for me to pull up the maple whiskey. But I mean, like, it was probably just because I was stuck in the house all day. That's what happens when I can't go to the center and get my chill on at the center I partially own. I just get like
stir crazy, cabin fever.
Right. I'm like, hey, I
Cabin fever.
have this nice spiritual center. I can't go to it. Can't do it. I think it was I think it's been a flashback from the, nobody could go do anything. But I mean, I heard the voice of 1,000 people crying when you said that amount of hours, because I think the illusion is like, so we were covering 10 to 12 hours, but what you really described was more than that. Because you said 10 to 12 a day, 6 days a week, but then you added stuff after you stopped speaking about social media. You were like up at 15, 16 hours that you're talking about 6 days a week, or something, because you added stuff after you gave the time estimate that I heard. Well, and I think I heard 1,000 people just cry out.
What's also interesting Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I heard 1,000 people who think, oh yeah, I could just do a podcast. It'll be like 5 hours a week and I'll make lots of money. I think all those people just cried in terror. It was like you're Darth Vader on, the Death Star, and you just launched your laser on Alderaan, and that was the end of their dream right there. Like,
well, and on a conservative level, it's 72 hours. On a higher level, we're looking at 90 hours or more a week.
Yes. Yeah, the social media stuff is one thing. I'm also one of those people that if people email me or reach out to me through any number of the social media, I will respond to them, and I'll try to respond thoughtfully. Literally one day of my week, guys, is answering emails. It's one day of my week is I wake up at 6. I'm answering emails at 7, and I don't stop until 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. I'm just answering people's questions. And there's nothing wrong with that. I ask people during my show to reach out to me, right? In hopes, that maybe they become a patron, but even not, it's just good. It's good to just be able to answer people, because people, as people are in the dark about this kind of stuff. Magic it's incredibly intimidating. It's one of those things where people are looking for somewhat clear answers. And if you go to a library, they're not going to know what you're talking about. If you go to 95% of the sites on the internet right now after you Google them, it's going to be complete and utter horseshit. They're not going to know what they're talking about, right? And so I get why there's a need for people to try and reach out to folks like myself.
There's some interesting. There's two interesting hard problems going on with that. I think the first is you're right. Some stuff is just too technical. Even author stuff is not approachable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to know stuff before you can even understand the book, because it's too technical. And then if you go by some of the, especially ceremonial magic books, you wouldn't do anything, because you'd come to the same conclusion that is correct, that ceremonial magic is an elitist magical style for elitist rich people. I mean, if you read the book exactly how it is, that's a correct interpretation of medieval philosophies. You don't have gold, fuck off, right? You don't have silver discs,
skin, fuck off.
What? Yeah, you don't have a lion skin? Sorry, that's not for you. Although I don't even think it's legal to have a lion skin at all.
Not anymore.
Like, so about that. Better get your VPNs working if you're a ceremonial magician again. But I mean, that said, you can realize, like, probably don't need all that stuff. Like, you have that aspect of it. Then you have the TikTok aspect, which is probably the other side, which is bad. Like, there is no effort to it. You just, make pretty and film it, right? Like, or you just put the jar together and then it's done. And there's the kind of consciousness changes that magic actually requires is missing. Mm-hmm. So it's all confusing on both sides of it. Like, the actual changes that, magic does. You don't just do magic. Magic does you. It's missing. It's. I mean, that's there in ceremonial magic, but not there in the sort of TikTok witchery, the fast witchcraft. You're right. On both sides of this, it's kind of confusing. It's like, well, it's not work. It doesn't work, and it kind of, in a way, diminishes like what you can actually do with magic. Like, I mean, I'm kind of poor marketer, clearly, because we talked about not doing social media before, not wanting to do social media before the COVID, but it was working. It was kind of a weird elitist, not elitist, but a weird FOMO model of business where we're like, if you know, you know. I'm like,
it was like that. It was, as someone said, oh, it's access to the country club. Word of mouth.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is that I totally realized when I started, I didn't have a Twitter account, I didn't have an Instagram account, I didn't have a Facebook account before I started my podcast. Now that I started, I have to have those things. I draw the line at TikTok. I'm not touching TikTok for a myriad of reasons, but I know other people that do, and they're very, very successful with it. But unfortunately, that's like, social media is the one that plays the tune, and if you want to have people with access and consistently getting access to your stuff, you have to dance that jig, and there's no way around that now. Like, it's
after COVID, I would it worked before COVID, the sort of hidden model, the hidden gem model. Post COVID, no more. No more. And it's not like things are just all back to normal either.
No, nothing. There's no going back after everything that's happened in the West in the last 3.5 years. But truthfully, like that's the constant change of life, and that's the constant change of whether I'd like to think that what I'm doing is art or not. Like I think that my podcast is somewhat artful. It's still my job, but I still have to treat it as a business. I love what I do. I love the fact that I get to wake up in the morning and it's like, what am I doing? Great. I'm taking apart a 17th century early modern grimoire about how to find treasure so that I can ask one of my heroes who I've been reading about since I was 20 to ask them a question. Not very many people get to do that. I am so lucky. It's an incredible thing. But yes, to go back to what you originally said, I have to do so much work. Like there's things I wish I could complain about, and that I make a living at it. I'm still below what is considered the Canadian poverty line, right? Like I'm not buying.
Wait. The second planet just got blown up, and everyone's like you could hear 1,000 voices scream in terror right here from that.
I'm hoping that's not going to be the case, right? But you know what? Like I'm able to do what I do with the amount of money that I make. I'm thankful that I have my supporters. I'm also one of those people who I truly believe that hard work pays off. And when you work as hard as you do, and you see that there are like small and slow diminishing returns, but they do add up over a period of time, I know that this is not going to be my state of affairs always. Like I do know that people will continue to find my show. It's just trying to be able to realize that when I relax, and if I take my foot off the pedal in certain things, like say I just like start recording, I don't know, like I go back to doing 1-hour episodes or stuff like that. I don't think I can do that. Like, I think there's certain areas and certain realms within what I do that the quality has to remain the same. And that just requires time. It requires time and it requires a lot of effort. So yeah, I mean, when people that are listening to this, I want you to start a podcast. I want to hear what you have to add to Magick. If not only for yourself, then if there's something that is worth sharing, then I think that eventually it will find an audience. I truly believe that. And I think everybody, I mean, I wouldn't say, everybody should start a podcast just to see how it goes, but you'll soon find out if it's truly something that you want to do. From my own angle that I'm speaking of right now, podcasting wasn't what I want to, like, it's not the end goal. It's not the thing that I truly want to do. I was talking to Zachary before we started recording. It's like, I came from a film background. I enjoy film. I used to have a film and video production company. I would love to be able to produce documentaries, even if they're like YouTube.
Please come to Toronto.
Please come to Toronto.
Yeah.
Come to
we want to film documentary rituals like as a Netflix show.
Yeah, but
I want to perform like huge rituals and then just get documentaries around the rituals, and that's our whole Netflix show.
Netflix show.
I think there isn't enough of interest for this kind of thing, and I'm not saying like I will be the first one. Podcasting is great. I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. If this is as close as I get to any kind of like notoriety, I'm fine with that. I can end my days being like, I did 10 years of an awesome podcast. Wonderful. But there's just this thing that I want to constantly evolve as well. And that's also just with the recognition that foot never comes off the gas. That like there is no reason for me to just be able to like, I've made it. 'Cause you haven't. You never do. And guess what? If you start to be like, I'm doing all right, imposter syndrome comes and bites you in the ass real quickly. Oh, you think you have everything in control? Guess what? Your guest drops out, and then you're struggling to find anything. Like, I just devoted 100 hours into research to this person who I'm never going to talk to because they might have listened to my podcast and disagreed with something I said, and so they're never appearing on the show. Great, you just flushed that down the drain.
I don't know. When that happens to me and Zach, we just start bullshitting about magic that we're actually doing.
We do.
Pretty like, yeah, man, we just summoned a demon last night. It was pretty cool. That's the whole show.
Cool. What you do?
Yeah.
No, but it's fun. I enjoy what I do. I love podcasting. I love the fact that I can reach as many people as I do. To speak on like the dark side of podcasting, or the business side of podcasting. Yeah. So what it is, as far as like the metrics for something like Patreon, less than 2% of your audience are ever even going to sponsor you for a month on Patreon, right? Like that's
So now you keep Death Star keeps like shooting. They're making people like. I mean, I know these numbers are accurate too.
Yes,
like
they are.
I basically, I basically use the 1% rule.
Mm-hmm.
You call the 2%. Like I said, the 1% rule is if 1% of the people actually like us or follow us after we take breaks or whatever, commit to something, we're doing okay. If we get anything over 1%, we're doing a good job.
Yeah.
That's so that metric Zach has actually heard something similar to that, like a 2%. I'd say we're doing a good job, and that's just content marketing numbers. Like that's actually what about the turnover is, not just for a cult. I mean, a cult is a little more difficult. Now, interesting though, when we started the show, we're like, there's so little people interested in this. Now that Toronto has taught me I might be wrong on.
Toronto's got an interesting community.
The reason that I would say it's wrong is there's so little white people interested in this. And after talking with Zach and where our center actually is, I have become to have a more unique perspective on this. We're in East Chinatown. Everyone believes in spirits in East Chinatown. Not everyone, but a lot more people. East Side.
There you go.
I even had like fake brass knuckles.
I know,
because
you got
brass
the
knuckles
brass.
are illegal in Canada, right? So you can't have brass knuckles. But yes, it's very different when you start looking at like Southeast Asia, China, like maybe not totally materialist China. Obviously, some cities are more materialist than others. Like even Japan, there's like a phrase that people use. It's the same phrase I heard in Haiti, like 90% of the population or 50% is Christian. In Japan, 70% is Buddhist, right? And then they keep going through the religions and they get 100% is Shinto.
Yeah.
Or in Haiti, 70% of people are Christian, and then they go, well, 100% are Voodoo, Assance. Right. Similar type of thing. It's just a different mindset that people have in some of these communities, but they don't come out to normal things.
Yeah.
Or what would be what we're used to.
Yeah, in Western culture. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the general, which goes back to why our decision was to be a word of mouth store, by the way. Like it all has to deal with the deep conversations me and Zach had about who actually is the people we're serving, and who's actually on social media. Like lots of people are on social media, but who uses social media to consume these kind of materials? And our target market doesn't.
Correct.
Or they didn't, but maybe now that's changed, but they didn't.
There's interesting communities on places like Twitter and places like Instagram. More so Twitter. Magical Twitter is an interesting place. I mean, it's people always just yelling at each other, but that's kind of like the nature of Twitter. But I would
Facebook, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Facebook. Facebook is, of the three social medias, Facebook is the one that I deal the least with. It's just basically when I release my podcast, it gets funneled to there. Anytime I do anything, it just gets funneled to Facebook. I barely spend time on Facebook to post things, but there are interesting magical communities. I mean, with something like a podcast, it's very different than obviously having something that is IRL, in real life, something that people can come to. My ambition was just trying to get my show into as many people's ear holes as possible, right? And so that's really the nature of my game. My Twitter account is, if you listen to my show and then you go to my Twitter account expecting like, oh, this guy has got a lot of opinions about magic and stuff like that, I'll bet his Twitter account's that. It's not. My Twitter account is mainly about like archaeology and art and things that I find interesting. I just retweet a whole bunch of other things. Like I say on my little Twitter bio, I save my opinions for my podcast, but even still, it's just one of those things where it's part of that game. So the people that come to my show from Twitter, it's merely because you are playing that game of just people being like curious, like, oh, who tweeted this thing? Click, and then they see my thing, and then they eventually find my podcast, right?
No, I mean, eventually,
that's it.
like I'm writing notes right now. Take notes.
You have a Twitter account on. I literally tagged you in.
You did. I saw it. I saw it.
Okay,
I
good.
never
Right.
post there.
Okay,
Like,
I noticed.
I used to post on Facebook more.
Right.
And I don't know. Like, all the witch wars kind of got to me. Like, when they turned my account off, they cut my account off because it was running a massive chaos Baphomet. Kind of, I don't know. It kind of made me mad with Facebook. Like, I literally was running a free ritual, and I'm like, yeah, here, we're doing it on Facebook Live, just come. And someone reported me, and then I got it turned off, and I'm like, this is legitimate, like a legitimate religious kind of thing. Maybe not religious, maybe magical, but it's kind of religious at this point. We're just doing an online ritual. Okay. And someone reported me for like basically terrorism because they, right. And I'm just kind of like, really? Like, and Facebook, you can't see this is clearly not terrorism. Like, it's described as an online ritual in the middle of COVID. Like, really? Nobody has the time to actually look at this and kind of, maybe say that's definitely not terrorist activity. Like, I mean, maybe in a certain sense of shamanic, all of us shamans and magicians are fighting it out constantly, aka
like Shaman King or something like that.
No, now I forgot the name of the author, but he's famous. Anton Wilson says like realities where basically all the shamans fought to a standstill. I mean, maybe in the sense of that a massive chaos Baphomet is sort of reality terrorism, I guess, but then that was it. That was kind of like when I'm like, yeah, I'm like, man, I don't want to keep doing this. Like, I spent so much time caring about what other people think on Facebook, and then our friend, like Stephanie, she writes all these demon books. She just hires people to do the social media stuff for her. She doesn't want anything to do with it, really. like
I will say this from this being my job, and I hope this doesn't come off as sounding like really, really supercilious, but the day that I'm able to financially finance somebody else to do all of that stuff for me, I'm going to take it, because it is.
I feel exactly the same.
We're all there.
It is exhausting. It is exhausting. I enjoy asking, but it's exhausting.
Like when people honestly reach out and they're having real conversations, it's cool. Like it's actually fun. It's really good. Like I love like connecting, and maybe Instagram and kind of Twitter, I'll probably get more into. Not Twitter anymore. I'm not in the Elon Musk fan club. So like, no.
Denied.
But yeah, I mean, kind of. He's done some things which make you kind of think, like, what are you doing? Why are you trying to tank Twitter and Tesla at the same time? Yeah. But that's neither here nor there. But I kind of think, like, yeah, when people authentically reach out, that's great. But it's like, it's that constant. What turned me off really was you always have this metric. You're always staring at this metric of views. You're always staring at this metric of likes for every post, and so that unconsciously biases everyone, because you're already biased towards what's going to get you more likes, because we get the dopamine fix.
Correct. Yeah.
From a magician's point of view, this is where marketing and the magician's point of view kind of seem to conflict, right? Yeah. Like, is doing what the crowd wants in line with my will? Not always, and not often, actually. Like, and is it sometimes? Yes.
I think for myself, I decided very early on, with every form of social media and with my show, I decided where my marketing ends and what my rules of engagement are for each thing that I engage with. And the fact that I was able to say, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing this, as far as like social media. Again, I'm never going on TikTok. Something I've decided. it's not happening. I know there's lots of people that are like, TikTok's great, etc., etc. I'll post a video that somebody has put on TikTok. I'll retweet it. Sure, I'm personally not going on there, but I made very conscious decisions as to what I would actually talk about on Twitter and what I will actually post on something like Instagram, right? And I've held to that. I am never going back. Again, I'm as far as like personal opinions, the only personal opinion I'm going to give on something like Twitter is going to be like something stupid. Like, I think that what was one I said? Like, I don't want crypto. I want the band The Prodigy to release the Dirt Chamber Sessions Volume 2. Like something really esoteric and dumb. But I'm not going to be on there basically like telling people how to do magic and shit like that. That being said, I did recently break this rule because I just posted something recently on Twitter, and it's just like what you talked about, Andrieh. It's like that little dopamine release, because I basically said to people on Twitter, because something pissed me off, and for some reason I went to Twitter for it, and I just basically said, once you learn the in and outs of any form of divination, the next step doesn't have to be that you offer your services online for money. And
well, no shit.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, that got more likes than anything else I've posted, right? And so that part of me is like, oh, well, if I engage like this, I'll have even more people finding my page. And since
Exactly.
posting that, and then since
Exactly.
posting
Like,
that,
I mean, I think that's the difficult. I mean, I know for a fact that you actually do magic too, right? You're not just a podcaster, but this is an interesting. This gets to like, you know, like, I mean, right now, like, we got one person watching, so thank you, but that's okay. We got far more people watching our podcast, actually, honestly. Listen to the podcast, even though we say we're live radio.
Yes.
But I mean, it's an interesting magical conversation, like one that I myself have kind of pondered too, like, which is what I asked, like, is this within people's true will when it starts mutating what your rules, like what you were willing to do, like, and it's a conversation that when you see people not authentic, I don't want to say authentically loving magic, but they don't, you know, they clearly have a magical business.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're actually doing magic, even as an author, we can answer that question. They can answer that question, but maybe there's some doubts. And there's a difference between that and people who actually struggle with the grind of actual magic. You know, you either have this kind of like grind of experimental magic, like that's chaos magic, which is sort of endlessly testing everything, or you get the grind of like academic magic where you're endlessly doing research and then you're still testing things, but you have a little bit more bounds on what you're willing to test. Either way, like the grind is there, like things blow up, things happen. There's days where, like, straight out, like any ritual that I post about is 2 years old or plus 2 years old. Like, I don't post on social media about anything that's not 2 years old or longer that have collected photos. Why? Because, you know, don't, you know, to will, to dare, to keep silent, you know?
yeah. And I don't want to sound like a crusty old man, but I'm constantly shocked by two things. And again, this is going to be like what I'm sure if people listen to this, they're going to be like Doug showing his age and his curmudgeonliness. But one, I think that people share a lot online, and particularly people who are magicians, they share a lot. Every once in a while,
I am not comfortable with the amount some people share who are
Yeah.
magicians. Like, I was taught a different way when I was doing conjure work. Like, you share nothing almost.
Yeah.
Which goes against the whole theory of being a public author, I know. But Zach has seen so many rituals that we never talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, rituals that either were so much on the high side of elation or on the side of just utter terror that we just don't talk about. Like I might talk about them, but I don't. Like, I have to conceptualize an art around talking about them, like as a story or something like that. But you're right. I'm shocked by how much people share.
Yeah.
As magicians, like,
A lot of my magic is spirit based, and a lot of the times in conversations, this is like, it's one of those things where you're entering into a pact with these. Like, I'm literally standing in a circle, entering into a pact with an entity, and I have no fucking clue what it is. And its base level request of you is secrecy. It's like, that's the one thing. It's like, be cool about this. And I don't know if a lot of what is being shared, if the spirits are saying things different to different people, or if they're just, I don't know what it is. And again, I don't want to come off as sounding like an old man, but it's just, I see the amount of things that people share, and I'm just kind of like, part of me, and this is going to sound mean, part of me is like, I don't really think you're doing the thing. I think you're doing this for show. I think a lot of this is show, and it's some pyrotechnics. And I get this feeling that I think you're just going through the motions, and then because I recoil, because now we're told everybody has their truth. Everybody has their thing that they're doing. Okay. I get it. Like, it's really like wonderful, fantastic. I will stand up for it 100%. But I think a lot of what is occurring is just people doing something
I think this is actually a very important point that we're getting to. Like, now I know, like, when people listen to the podcast, they'll be like, "What the f you guys are talking about this?" But like, going off of rails. But this actually gets to it. Actually important point. There's a performative aspect of magic
100%
that when I started in the 80s, maybe wasn't there. Like, and I would purposely do public rituals in a performative manner, and Zach has saw this, for the express purpose of transgression.
Yes.
Right? Like, as in, I would do rituals in the public so hardcore and so much to the level of my ability that it would transgress the performative aspects. Like, as in, there's a certain performance you do if you go to like Wiccan rituals. It's a great time. Actually, you saw this at Pagan Pride, Zach.
Well, we did it.
I was asked. People asked me to do the Skyfather without knowing who they were asking. Actually,
yes, and they had me draw the circle. So,
and we purposely talked about it, like what would be transgressive. Like, not because I purposely want to anger people, but because the performative aspects get in the way of the experience of magic. And how can you take the performative aspects, the subjective, and create subjective experiences which go beyond the performative aspects, like basically a noetic experience? How can you use the performance to create a Dionysian conflict inside? Like, right? Like, how can we create actual change even though the ritual is performative? And I think that's an example where I stepped to the plate. I had a 5-minute thing and did it to the best of my possible ability, purposely to be as transgressive as possible. And the clouds, it rained. It rained right after. There was no rain before I did that. And I mean, Skyfather work, storm magic, that's sort of my thing. I like it a little.
It is one of your many points of mastery.
But I mean, this particular aspect was done on purpose. Me and Zach talked about it. We talked with everyone. Why would we do this? It's because the performative aspects of magic, like you're describing, doesn't give people the opportunity to experience magic.
I think for the most part also, it's not so much just that it's the performance, because I just recently stopped. I did a 3-part series about how to start people with doing something like Solomonic magic, and I actually took them through a grimoire that I think is like horribly broken. It's incredibly broken. I called it Fake It Till You Make It. I'm fine with performance. Performance is wonderful. I think that I'm trying to shift people's idea, because I really don't like the term ceremonial. Trying to get people to be like, try to think of it more as performative magic, because I think that's truly, it's one of those things that is it's not so much like the what of what you're doing, it's more about the how of what you're doing. But it's more so like, I get performance, and this line between what's fake and what's real and what's pretend and what's not is something, it's a hurdle for people getting into magic. They have to come to terms with. Truthfully,
I think it's the intention. I think it becomes the intention, because my intention was to go beyond the performative aspects of the ritual itself, to transcend, to actually touch. My involvement was predicated on actually touching a sky god. Like that was my intention. But when your intention limits yourself to, I'm going to get these likes, there's no avenues for it to grow into what you're describing. So there's the there's the performative aspects, fake it and make it, but there's still the real intentions there.
Correct.
You want to communicate with something.
Yes.
As opposed to you want to get Twitter likes or Facebook likes or TikTok
and
likes.
this is where if we look at even acting as a whole, you talk to any actor that's professional, they're in it for the goal. They will go as far as they can. So there's the fake it till you make it. You can absolutely fake it in the acting and still go hardcore with it.
I think that's true for actors who are good actors.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah. Part of me is, to just go back to what we were saying, part of me is one of those things where some of the stuff is just, it's pretty. I really love it. I love that it looks like it's so well crafted. And again, I love film and this kind of thing. But part of me is just like, I'm pretty sure that you're not actually doing the thing. You're just showing people so that they think you're doing the thing. Maybe next time, listen to what we're saying and just be like, well, maybe if you do put some intention behind that, see what happens. That's called doing magic. Like that's actually doing the thing.
Well, the thing is that a ritual can be that beautiful. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Should you ever get a stipend from Netflix and want to do the documentary, our store is available for filming. We'll do real beautiful rituals, and like they will have teeth behind them. And you can film the documentary like where people come out, the filming staff come out crying, which happened the last time we did it.
Nice.
We had to actually teach this filming staff how to center.
Oh, yeah.
So they could film.
Nice. Wicked.
Because they were like, why is my heart rate going to 200 in the middle of this non-threatening ritual? We're like, about that. Let's teach you how to actually center and ground right now. Like,
right.
Mission successful, right? A few more people. But I mean, that's the key, right? So they can be beautiful, but it's like the secondary step is this intentional step where, we often talk about this on the show. Magic is risky, but not in the way people think. They have the idea it's like Hollywood risky, like, okay, here's the demon's gonna eat you or something.
The first time
the real risk is that it actually, I think the greater risk is that nothing happens, what you're describing. That to me is the greater risk. Because what that teaches you is that you cannot make changes in your world. You cannot actually, everything is performative. You don't have the volition in the world, and you're just making a show for attention. I think that's a much more dangerous internal message to feed your subconscious mind. Well, you get past that, if magic is actually sort of real, then you have this whole quandary of doing magic means change. And change is rough. Change, one little prosperity spell can break things. One angel ritual, what is considered, I don't know why, if you read classic ceremonial magic, that angel rituals are considered benign. Let's call it performative magic, but I don't know why it's considered benign when you actually read any of the books. But the most benign angel ritual a Venusian angel ritual can completely shatter your whole worldview right then and there.
Yep.
I mean, what is considered the most benign possible ritual could have drastic changes in your life. Like, it could be the right time at the right place where you're doing a mojo bag and it can kind of trigger something like that. You just do stuff different.
Well, I think that all of us can probably relate to the period of time when we knew that magic was real in some way. When you did something and it worked, that offers up a load of psychological, philosophical, and even existential questions that for a lot of people are very fucking scary, right?
They should, and that's
should be. Yeah.
that's the real horror of magic. That's the grind of magic. It's those questions. Like, even if you can explain it away psychologically, okay, fine. It's all self-hypnosis. Great. It's still, there's still all these existential questions then, like, okay, it's all in my head, but why am I suffering right now? If I can make these changes, like,
yeah,
what else is in my head that I'm causing this for? I mean, like, and even if you don't believe it's all in your head, and like a spirit model, you still, it always
Have
just
some
leads to more and harder questions. And I don't know, I take a neurochemical view of this, that anything that makes you ask questions, your subconscious mind wants to avoid, because basically it requires more energy.
Yeah, I think one thing I like this route that we're going. It's really good. It started with podcasting, and now we're actually getting to the tasty bits.
Meat,
it's great.
good stuff.
That's right. But I think that's one of the things that when people start coming to me initially, they come as seekers. They come like wanting a definitive answer to stuff, right? And I'm always telling them, like, look, best to just keep with the initial impulse of why you came to me, which is seeking itself. It's just seeking. Like, I've been doing this 21 years. I don't have any fucking answers. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on. I'd love to be able to give you a mechanical answer to like why when I do certain things and there's a sword that I'm tracing a circle on the floor, why something visibly appears in front of me for 15 seconds and then is gone. I'd like to be able to give you an answer as to that kind of thing. I would love to. Some people do. I find like a lot of the people that, excuse me if I'm overstepping, I find like a lot of people that do make money from selling these kind of books that do have those definitive answers for you. I think they're talking horse shit because there is none. If there was, then those grimoires would have all the answers and there would be like it would all be settled.
See,
everything.
Now I don't disagree with this, but I really have some notions in my head of going and getting a PhD in neuropsychology, and that I think I think I understand stuff enough that I could come up with some explanations if I could get one assumption that science won't like, which is basically nonlinear, some sort of nonlinear effects. Then I could explain about 99% based on some sort of energy to psychological reaction. And I think it's testable, but that's just me.
Right.
I still have to have this mystery of that freaking nonlinear connection point.
Right.
And you could start testing around this. Like, that's the other thing. People who make the explanations don't understand enough about social sciences. Like, social science and magic get similar results. Like, similarly ambiguous results and similar results from therapeutic modalities, and magic get similar statistical analogs. Like, it's crazy. Like, I mean when people actually get the techniques down, like, similarly, like, improvements in life wellness and all the kind of stuff that you'd expect occur. Like, and like in social science, you can't make direct claims. Like, you can't say X goes to Y. You can only say this is correlated to this.
Right.
But I suspect, based on my own experiences, that there is this sort of like brainstorm that occurs, that our body reacts to the energy, and then the brain makes up a story, like, and then makes the changes based on the changes. But that's coming from a very Eastern Qigong point of view. Like, but it does fit with like what I know about psychology, neurolinguistic programming, Qigong, and I mean, that's not an explanation for that nonlinear effect.
No. Yeah, I find it's one of those things because my show attracts a lot of people that are new to magic. They come because they're interested, curiosity first, and then they just want answers. And I just have to tell them, like, maybe not the best place to try and find answers, but if you want to try doing some weird shit to see if weird shit happens, you're in the right place. But as far as like me trying to give solid concrete answers to people, I personally, I think that's disingenuous. But it's unfortunate because the temptation is there because that's what people want. That's really what people want. They want answers. And
Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah,
I
they
don't,
do.
They definitely do.
I don't think I'm in a position to give answers. I don't, and I'm always very skeptical of people who do have lots of answers, and particularly people that write books that have the answers. That's one of those things where I'm always just like, I don't know, man.
I mean, outside of my theory that I'd love to be able to get a couple $1 million to test, I mean, realistically, none of us have the answers.
No.
Like, and if we did, what would be the point?
Mm-hmm.
Like, as in, why bother? I mean, like, it wouldn't be any fun. You would sort of like take all the mystery out of it. Like, it would be like, I don't know. Like, what would it would be like? There wouldn't be any adventure magic anymore. It would just be like, I don't know. It would be. I mean, that's a. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about that. I'm like dumbstruck by my own comment that it would just be like, it would just be boring. It would be like, you wouldn't be able to live you wouldn't be able to step into this fictional realm that is magic, or the Twilight realm of magic, or whatever you want to call it. It would just be, well, here's another rote thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, press the buttons on the microwave and you're done.
To like kind of continue with this whole Death Star destroying of people's ideas, right? Like if I knew the secret as to how to make a successful podcast, it would be the same as Andrieh having the secret to writing the successful book. It would be like they don't exist, right? It's each person trying to find out what works, which goes to the heart of magic. And that's the other thing. And maybe this might be the Uber theme to this whole podcast is that it's work. All of this stuff is work and it never stops. And I would love to get to a place where it's easy. Just like we were talking earlier, I would love to have somebody who handles all of my social media. I would love to have a secretary that answers people's emails, right? But truthfully, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And I'm okay with that. And that's totally fine.
Though if it did happen, I would be very pleased.
Yes.
But there's also to go back to, I mean, to talk about myself again, that's also in a way me taking the foot off the gas. I think if I hate removing ums from podcasts. If there's an AI thing, I don't know if I'd use it. I don't know if I'd use it. I don't know if I'd use it. I don't know if
I'd use it because where I think I want to apply the gas is actually in me writing more materials, right,
or
me doing actual rituals, and that's the gas that I want to apply. Like I want to have more time to, to either, to do stuff basically. Yeah, I guess
for sure. Yeah, but I mean, for now, my podcast is my job. It's the remove. There'll be points where I feel like throwing my laptop out the window. It's not fun, but it's still part of that process. And I'm trying to that whole expression. I forget, it was one of the U.S. Postmaster Generals. I forget his name, but he basically said that half of the money I spend on marketing is wasted. I just don't know which half. That's kind of like how I view my time. I don't know which half. Like half of the time I spend on my podcast is wasted. I just don't know which half it is. But all I know is that what I'm doing is still working. So I'm just going to keep kind of doing it.
There's kind of a theory that the podcast itself is a greater entity, like or a greater magical spell, and by putting that effort in, you're keep feeding a greater magical spell.
I'm feeding it. Sure. Yeah. I definitely had help. I mean, I'm not gonna give you specifics because we just talked about sharing, but there was a series of rituals that I did for my podcast. Am I prepared to say that like my pseudo success for the podcast is because of my rituals? No, but it helped, I'm sure. But
there you go. The secret came out at the end.
So does hard work, right? Like it's you can't just do one thing and walk away from it, right? It's an all angles approach, which we all have seen the Chaos Star, right? We're Chaos Magicians. Those arrows go everywhere because you have to. It truly does.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Now that said, it's been about an hour. Yeah,
Mhm.
right. So that said, now we're gonna do our. If you haven't actually gone to What Magic Is This, after Doug told us he spends hours reading and researching materials, kind of go there. We got the link on Apple and Spotify right now on the YouTube. So if you're watching this later, feel free to go there, kind of click there, check it out. It's more structured, I'd say, than our weirdness today. That's just how it went today. It doesn't always go that way. Sorry about that, everyone. That said, if you're interested in keeping the lights on for our store, we have sponsors. And what do they get, Zach? So we don't exactly have a Patreon. We just have a sponsorship.
We have a Patreon. We have a sponsorship. So 3.5 years or so, 3 years minimum. 3.5 is actually probably closer to it, with workshops and rituals. We also have our library that if you become a sponsor, you get to read the book like an actual library. And then you can purchase the book to support the authors who will connect you to get their materials directly. And then we also have our membership sponsors. So next week, as we said earlier, we are going to have our double features. So it's going to be the ritual that Andrieh is running for Michael, and then we'll have a pendulum class afterward. And then it's basically we have a weekly ritual or a weekly workshop schedule after that.
Yep. Ganesh ritual. On Easter, we're going to do a Christos ritual. Be fun times.
Fun times.
And then, as we said, starting July 1st, we're going to go through all 72 Goetia every 2 weeks, through every single one of them, with like how to summon each and every of the spirits, like a general framework of how to actually go through and summon the spirits. And we're actually going to do them. So like if you're in Toronto or you're online, we're going to actually do the rituals. And we're going to also do the Shema Force so people can feel like they're balancing it out, all the 72 names of God. So fun times. Like nobody in Toronto is doing all 72 of the Goetia at all. And no stores will touch that. We are right there. We're touching it. We're going to do it. That's how it's going to roll. And so, yeah, I mean, that kind of tells everyone that like our store is really about all spirituality, all the paths. We're not really discriminating. Like, we do voodoo, we do Taoist work, we do Buddhism. Like people come in, and there are people who run Wiccan rituals. All the different paths are welcome, and we mean it. We're not just giving it lip service. Like, so if you're in Toronto, like we said, we have a couple public shrines. July 1st, we're going to start that out. We just like a couple weeks ago got the Buddhist shrine up and running with the Sun Buddha. So if you just need to come and pray to the Sun Buddha, who's great at actually clearing your head, really like if you have despair or your situation's not so good, you just sit and kind of pray. And we have the mantra right there, so you can kind of sit there and it's just a micro temple in the hallway. No one will bother you, and you can kind of just come and kind of do what you need to, even if your living space is not so good right now, or you have living arrangements. We know how it is. That's what they're there. That's what it's there for. Like, just come by, do what you got to do. We'll take care of the altars. Like, you leave offerings, we take care of it. No worries. Like, Yeah. So whatever you need to connect your ancestors. We got an ancestor altar. Like, really, if you're in Toronto or you're visiting Toronto, like I said, you don't have to buy anything. All these shrines are there for free. They're just there as public service. And you know what? If the door is locked because we're on the 4th floor and it's like 10 o'clock at night and we happen to be there, you call us. We'll say, sure, we'll let you in. You don't have to come to the store at all. Like, we'll just let you in to do what you need to do.
Yes.
Because that's how we roll.
So if people want to become members, you can go to QueenCityCurio.ca /pages/become a member. And you'll see all our member sponsorships.
Now, while I know, like a little less people than sometimes, Doug, I'd love to have you come back because I feel like we were starting to get into
We were
meat.
getting jam. We were getting into it.
Like actual meat that people don't want to hear necessarily, but I think it's useful to hear once in a while, like different perspective, like when you have people actually practicing magic and trying to navigate the kind of public sphere, just hear different things.
Mm-hmm.
I think so as well. And again, if there is an Uber theme, an overarching theme to this episode that we've talked about, is that the work doesn't stop. It never ends. And truthfully, there's so much more that I think the three of us can talk about and talk in and of this idea of work. And it's one of those things where there's much more to be said about it than even what we've just kind of scratched the surface.
Totally. I mean, you kind of hear our bias, like we have these public shrines, like right,
Yeah.
like we're like yeah, we're putting work, and you're like, yeah, if we take the gas off the thing, and we're like, yeah, we take our gas off our public shrines, we're like, what are we doing, man? We got to get back on this. Like it is like that, like
the constant reminders are there when we see them.
Yeah, we constantly see when we're not keeping track of our public available shrines. We're like, and we see the benefits too. Like more people actually come as we do more work in our shrines.
Yeah.
Not really for our benefit. You're not going to get rich with a public shrine either, but we see more people come when we're actually kind of building it. So it's a lot like the podcast, like that just shows our bias that we're like really curmudgeon and like oh yeah, they're like physically have to go outside your house to go to a public shrine. So
have you gentlemen heard of the Oakland Buddha?
No.
So this is just something that was shared within my when you join my Patreon, people get to they get part of a Discord server. It was shared by one of my patrons on my Discord server. So there was a gentleman in Oakland, and he was tired of people dumping garbage at this like corner of his street, which was on his part of his property. Just got tired of it. So he erected. Guy wasn't Buddhist. He erected a shrine, a Buddha shrine, and just because he was like, I'm tired of people dumping garbage here. People aren't going to dump garbage at a shrine. Not only did it stop the people dumping garbage there, crime in the neighborhood went down 83%.
Oh my God. We have to get that person on our show right now.
Imagine that. So so it's just really interesting. It's one of those things when you start to talk about public shrines, is like, but that's one of those things. It's unfortunate we live in such a world where we have to have a reason for everything now. I think the more shrines we have, the better. I'm all for shrines. So you guys are doing a good thing. You already know
on
that.
Three. Two are active. One is kind of like
we got Tanuki chilling. They're chilling.
We have a Tanuki altar, which is weird.
It's a Tanuki altar now.
I think like the weird secular atheist version of shrines that we have in North America is the proliferation of free libraries, like those little neighborhood libraries, which are cool. All right, I like them, but put some gods in them. Put some interesting stuff in them, I think.
There it is.
There's
our next movement. Let's make little god shrines.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's just make random god shrines and have people put them up wherever. Some random god that just you connect to. Here's a little public shrine to the god you work with. So if you're a magician, occultist, pagan, witch, shaman, I don't know how many other adjectives I can use.
Probably
you should get your shrine in your yard right now.
That's right.
Worship your god. Show your god. Give a little library shrine to that god so somebody can walk up and leave prayers.
That's right.
I think that's a perfect way to end today.
Absolutely.
You should do it, people. Seriously, that would be awesome. I would stop. If I was walking around Toronto and I saw certain shrines, I would certainly walk up, and if it was an entity that I felt like I could work with, I'd be like, okay. Right. So I'll spend 5 minutes actually like seeing if I get any kind of result or a gnosis change. And
definitely. Make it happen, Toronto. Why does all the busy stuff happen when I leave Toronto? All the
well,
cool,
you know what?
all the cool stuff is happening now.
You know,
oh,
as an outtake, you know, like, you know, if that dream of like documentaries and rituals come about, it's probably going to happen in Toronto because that's where all the film students are.
That's right.
That's where all the film studios are.
That's
And
right.
should that happen, I wasn't joking about you coming down. We'll put our rituals.
We'll put it on.
Like, yeah,
Definitely. You have my word. You
never know.
I still have some work to do on my end. Truthfully, I do have work to do still. So
You honestly never know when some producer's going to just reach out to you and say, well, we listen to your podcast. Are you interested in doing a film documentary of just various rituals? You just never know.
Yes, we are.
You never know. Knock on wood, right? Oh, I hope that was
exactly. It's just, I mean, it just happens sometimes. Like,
definitely does.
There is sort of a weird growing interest in occult stuff.
More and more.
Since Damien Eccles is like, he blew the doors open, I think a lot of people are very, very interested. That's kind of like the big one that I consider recently is Damien Eccles, his 2-3 books, I think, and his appearance on Midnight Gospel, and people are interested in this stuff again. People are interested in this stuff again. So it's interesting. It tends to, we're all older. We're all a little bit older than our 20s. I'm just going to say, we've seen the whole ebb and flow of this kind of stuff through culture, but yeah, I see a bit of a receding happening right now, but we'll see what happens next when people get interested with it once more. It's never goes away truly, but it's just it seems to surge at certain points. Yeah,
that's probably true.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably true. And with that, stay healthy. In my case, don't get COVID, which is becoming riskier, harder. If you listen,
please stay healthy. Yes,
stay healthy. Stay safe.
Stay healthy. Well, you know, the interesting thing is that, like, I know there's a certain number, but like last week, there's a lot of people I know that got COVID.
Yeah, there was a spike.
Maybe that's just a weird me, but I don't think so, because I heard that from Zach and I heard that from some other people that there's a lot of people they knew got COVID. Like kind of just right around now. So it's like, it's not being called a spike, but it's certainly anecdotal. Seems like it is sort of like something's going on all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Wash your hands, everybody. Wash your hands, please.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's pretty easy. Every time you go to the bathroom, just wash your hands. It's literally like, I don't care if you didn't get piss on them. Just still wash
your hands.
That's right.
Keep them clean.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we'll see everyone next week. Next week, we got the Poison Path.
That we do.
And the week after, we have Matt Aaron on. He's written several books. Probably one of the most popular writers right now. And we're happy to have him. And with that, stay healthy, stay safe. Doug, stay on for a second as we take us on out. Okay.
All right. On to live recording.
Nope.